I spent 5 years of my life working double shifts and living in a tiny, stifling apartment just to secure my future. Every cent I saved was for my dream home, but my own sister decided her wedding was worth more than my sweat and blood. So, I ruined it. In our family, there was the sun, and then there was everything else orbiting it. My younger sister, Madison, was the sun. Ever since we were kids growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, Madison possessed this terrifying ability to manipulate reality through sheer charisma and a well-timed tear. My parents, Brenda and Robert, were entirely helpless against it. If Madison wanted a pony, my parents took out a loan. If Madison wanted to go to a private liberal arts college out of state to find her muse, my parents remortgaged the house. And me? I was Harper, the practical one, the independent one, the daughter my parents proudly claimed never needed any help, which was really just their convenient excuse to give me absolutely nothing. I didn't mind. Not really. I learned early on that relying on myself was the only way I'd ever get anywhere. After putting myself through state college with a mix of scholarships and grueling night shifts at a diner, I landed a decent job as a UX designer. For 5 long years, I lived like a monk. I drove a beat-up Honda Civic with a broken AC, ate ramen more nights than I cared to admit, and took on every freelance project I could find. My goal was simple: $48,000. That was the exact down payment I needed for a beautiful little 2-bedroom condo near the lake. It was going to be my sanctuary, a place nobody could take away from me. I kept this money in a high-yield savings account. It was an older account, one my mother, Brenda, had set up for me when I was 17 to deposit my high school tutoring money. I hadn't thought to remove her name from it. Why would I? She was my mother. I trusted her. That was the most expensive mistake of my life. The chaos began the night Madison brought Liam home. Liam was, objectively, a great guy. He was kind, soft-spoken, and wildly wealthy. He was the sole heir to his family's commercial real estate empire. His parents, Eleanor and Charles, were old-money socialites who threw charity galas and summered in the Hamptons. Madison had met Liam at an art gallery opening, and within 6 months, she had her hook so deep into him he couldn't see straight. Liam thought Madison was a delicate, selfless angel who volunteered at animal shelters and cared deeply about family values. He had no idea she was a master manipulator. When Liam proposed with a blinding 3-carat oval diamond, my parents wept with joy. I was happy for her too, at first. But then, the wedding planning started. Madison didn't just want a wedding, she wanted a coronation. She hired a snooty, high-end wedding planner named Stephanie, who charged a retainer that cost more than my car. Madison selected a historic botanical garden for the venue, ordered a custom Italian silk gown, and insisted on a multi-course dinner prepared by a Michelin-starred chef. The budget exploded past $100,000 in a matter of weeks. One Sunday evening, during a family dinner that Liam couldn't attend, my dad, Robert, finally looked at the spreadsheets Madison had printed out. He took off his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Maddie, sweetheart," Dad sighed. "We can't afford this. Your mother and I are already leveraged to the hilt. We can give you $10,000, but that's it." Madison's face contorted. The angelic mask slipped, replaced by the petulant child I knew all too well. 10,000? Are you joking? Liam's parents are paying for the rehearsal dinner at the Waldorf. They are expecting my family to match their financial energy. Eleanor keeps making side comments about traditional families covering the wedding. If we look poor, they won't respect me. "We aren't poor, Madison, but we aren't millionaires," Mom pleaded, reaching for her hand. "Can't you scale it back? Do you really need an imported orchid wall?" "Yes, I need the orchid wall, Mom," Madison screamed, tears spilling over her lashes perfectly. "This is my one day. You're trying to ruin my life." She stormed out of the dining room. My parents sat there, looking devastated. I just rolled my eyes, gathered my dishes, and went back to my apartment. I assumed they would figure it out, or Madison would be forced to compromise. I drastically underestimated how far my mother would go to keep her golden child happy. It was a Tuesday morning, exactly 3 months before the wedding. I was sitting at my kitchen island, drinking coffee, and preparing to transfer my earnest money to my real estate agent. I had finally found the condo. My offer had been accepted. I was buzzing with excitement. I opened my banking app, ready to initiate the transfer. I blinked. I refreshed the page. I closed the app and opened it again. Available balance, $34.50. A cold, sickening dread poured over me like ice water. I couldn't breathe. $48,000. Gone. The ledger showed a single line item from the previous afternoon. Wire transfer, joint AC, authorization, Brenda, destination, Madison and Liam Wedding Fund. My vision blurred. My hands shook so violently, I dropped my phone on the floor. I didn't even bother changing out of my sweatpants. I grabbed my keys, flew down the stairs, and drove the 20 minutes to my parents' house like a maniac. I slammed on the brakes in their driveway, marched up to the front door, and let myself in. My mother was in the kitchen, casually arranging grocery store hydrangeas in a vase. Madison was sitting at the island, sipping an iced matcha latte, looking over fabric swatches. "Where is it?" I screamed, my voice echoing off the high ceilings. My mother flinched, dropping a pair of floral shears. Madison just looked up, completely unbothered, and took another sip of her drink. "Harper, keep your voice down," Mom hissed, glancing nervously toward the home office where Dad was likely hiding. "Where is my money, Mom?" I slammed my fists onto the marble counter, causing Madison's iced drink to rattle. $48,000. My down payment. You wired it to Madison? Mom wrung her hands, refusing to make eye contact with me. "Harper, please try to understand." Madison was in a crisis. Liam's mother, Eleanor, demanded to see proof of funds for the wedding venue. They were going to pull their financial support if we didn't show we could cover our half. "It's just a temporary loan, sweetie. A bridge loan." "A bridge loan?" I laughed, a hysterical, cracked sound. "You stole my life savings. You committed fraud." "It's not fraud, Harper," Madison chimed in, her tone dripping with condescension. "Mom's name is on the account. Legally, she has every right to move those funds. Don't be so dramatic." I stared at my sister. The sheer sociopathic calm in her eyes terrified me. "You took my house, Madison. I was supposed to wire the earnest money today. I lose the condo. I lose everything I worked 5 years for." "Oh, boo-hoo," Madison rolled her eyes. "It's just a stupid apartment. You can buy another one next year. I only get married once. Do you have any idea the pressure I'm under?" Eleanor gave Liam a $50,000 trust disbursement for the wedding. She told me, to my face, that she expects my family to match it to prove I'm not a gold digger. If she finds out we're broke, she'll make Liam call off the wedding. "I don't care about your wedding. Transfer it back, right now." I pulled out my phone and slammed it in front of her. Madison smirked, leaning forward. "I can't. It's already gone." "What?" "The Biltmore estate requires a non-refundable 50% deposit. That was 20 grand. Stephanie's retainer was 10. The florist and the photographer took the rest. The money is spent, Harper." The room started to spin. 5 years of late nights. 5 years of skipping vacations, wearing cheap clothes, saving every single penny. Gone in an afternoon for flowers and a photographer. "I'm calling the police," I whispered, my voice trembling with rage. "I'm calling the police, and I'm calling Liam." Madison stood up, her eyes narrowing into cold, calculating slits. She walked around the island and stood inches from my face. "If you do that," Madison said softly, "I will destroy you. I will tell the police that you gave me that money willingly as a gift, and Mom will back me up. It's her word and mine against yours, and legally, she had access to the account. The police will see the transfer. And I'll tell Liam the truth," Madison interrupted, smiling a venomous, shark-like smile. "Well, my version of the truth." "Which is what?" "I told Liam and Eleanor that you are severely mentally unstable. I told them you got fired from your job months ago, that you have a massive gambling debt, and that you've been draining Mom and Dad's retirement accounts." I stepped back, horrified. "You did what?" "I told them that I have been personally bailing you out," Madison continued, reveling in my shock. "I told them that the $48,000 was my personal savings that I've been hoarding to protect from you. If you go to Liam with some crazy story about me stealing from you, they will immediately assume you're having a manic episode. Liam's family already pities you, Harper. They think I'm a saint for even letting you be a bridesmaid." I looked at my mother. Brenda was staring at the floor, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. She wasn't going to defend me. She was going to let Madison assassinate my character, just to secure this wealthy marriage. Mom, I choked out, are you really going to let her do this? Mom finally looked up, her expression a mix of guilt and desperate resolve. Harper, please. Liam is Madison's future. Once she's married into the Higgins family, she'll be set for life. She promised to pay you back from the wedding gifts. Just play along, please, for the family. For the family. Those 3 words snapped something deep inside my brain. A heavy, iron door slammed shut on my heart. I realized, in that exact second, that I had no family. I had a parasite for a sister, and an enabler for a mother. If I went to the cops, Madison was right. It was a joint account. The police would call it a civil matter. I'd have to sue my own mother, which would take years and thousands of dollars in legal fees I no longer had. If I screamed and yelled, I played right into Madison's narrative that I was unhinged. I took a deep breath. I let my shoulders drop. I forced my hands to stop shaking. I looked at Madison, who was watching me like a hawk, waiting for my next move. Fine, I said, my voice eerily calm. Madison blinked, surprised by my sudden surrender. Fine? Fine. Keep the money. Have your dream wedding. I picked up my phone and put it in my pocket. But I expect to be paid back, with interest, the week after you return from your honeymoon in Bora Bora. Madison's face broke into a radiant, triumphant smile. She actually stepped forward and hugged me. I stood there, stiff as a board, smelling her expensive vanilla perfume. Thank you, Harper. I knew you'd understand. You are the best sister in the world, she squealed. I walked out of the house without another word. I got into my sweltering car, gripped the steering wheel, and let out a primal scream that tore at my throat. I cried until my eyes were swollen and my chest ached. But when the tears stopped, clarity washed over me. Madison thought she had won. She thought she had boxed me in with her lies and our mother's complicity. But she forgot one crucial detail. She had made me a bridesmaid. She was giving me a front row seat, a microphone, and unrestricted access to Liam and his elite family for the next 3 months. She wanted a wedding that people would talk about for the rest of their lives. I was going to make damn sure she got exactly that. The next 3 months were a masterclass in psychological warfare, and I played my role with chilling perfection. To Madison and my mother, I was the defeated, submissive sister who had accepted her fate for the sake of the family's social standing. To Liam and his wildly affluent family, I was the tragic, recovering addict who was miraculously pulling her life together, just in time for the wedding. My first strategic move involved Liam's mother, Eleanor. Eleanor was a formidable woman who practically radiated old money intimidation. She hosted a bridal shower at her sprawling country club, pouring endless mimosas and parading Madison around like a newly acquired racehorse. Madison had clearly laid the groundwork regarding my condition. When I walked in, wearing a modest, off-the-rack floral dress, Liam's relatives looked at me with a mixture of pity and cautious apprehension. I leaned into it. When Eleanor cautiously offered me a glass of champagne, I offered a soft, self-deprecating smile. "Oh, no thank you, Mrs. Higgins," I murmured politely. "I'm keeping my head clear these days. I really owe it to Madison. She's been such a rock for me during my financial struggles." Eleanor's cold exterior thawed ever so slightly. "Madison mentioned you've had a rough year, Harper. Losing your job, the other issues." "Yes," I lied flawlessly, my eyes shining with fake gratitude. If she hadn't dipped into her own savings to help me cover my debts, I don't know where I'd be. She's too generous, really. The confusion in Eleanor's eyes was instantaneous. Madison had told Eleanor that she was draining her savings to bail me out. But as I subtly name-dropped my current, very active role as a senior UX designer and mentioned my recent, though canceled real estate endeavors in passing, the math stopped adding up for the Higgins matriarch. I planted the seeds of doubt, watering them with sheer politeness. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I was a digital ghost. As a tech professional, navigating bank security protocols was second nature. I couldn't press charges without tearing the family apart in court, but I could absolutely gather irrefutable, undeniable proof. I visited my local bank branch and sat down with a manager, explaining that I needed a deeply detailed audit of the wire transfer for tax purposes. They provided me with a certified, stamped document detailing the exact IP address and device identifier used to initiate the transfer. The IP address mapped perfectly to my parents' residential router. The device identifier belonged to Brenda's iPad. But paper trails can be dismissed by a skilled liar. I needed a confession. The opportunity presented itself during the bachelorette weekend in Miami. Madison's maid of honor, a vapid influencer named Natalie, had rented a multi-million-dollar yacht using Liam's credit card. The champagne flowed like water. By the second night, under the neon lights of a VIP club, Madison was dangerously intoxicated, practically vibrating with arrogance. I cornered her in the lavish bathroom of the club while the bass thumped through the walls. I hit record on my phone, slipping it into the front pocket of my clutch. "You really pulled it off, Maddie," I slurred slightly, faking a buzz. "I have to hand it to you. The yacht, the ring, the wedding. You got everything you wanted." Madison leaned heavily against the marble sink, reapplying her lip gloss with a clumsy, triumphant smirk. "Of course I did, Harper. I always get what I want. Liam is literally obsessed with me. But aren't you worried?" I pushed, keeping my voice conspiratorial. "Aren't you worried Liam will find out about the 48 grand? About how Mom transferred my condo money?" Madison let out a loud, ugly snort. "Please. Liam is an idiot when it comes to me. He believes whatever I say, and Mom would rather die than let me look bad in front of Eleanor. You're the only one who cares about that stupid money, and you can't do anything about it. I secured the bag, Harper. You paid for my orchid wall, and I am going to be Mrs. Liam Higgins. Just accept that I won." I smiled, my heart pounding a steady, icy rhythm against my ribs. "You're right," I whispered. "You won." I walked out of the bathroom, the recording saved and backed up to 3 separate cloud servers. The pieces were finally in place. All I had to do was wait for the curtains to rise. The rehearsal dinner at the Waldorf was a tense affair, mostly because Eleanor had started asking pointed questions about my gambling debt, which I expertly deflected, letting Madison sweat through her silk dress as she tried to intercept the conversations. My father, Robert, looked perpetually nauseous, while Brenda clung to her wine glass like a life preserver. They knew a storm was coming, they just didn't know I was the one bringing the lightning. The wedding day was offensively beautiful. The historic botanical garden had been transformed into a woodland fantasy that smelled of money and desperation. The infamous imported orchid wall served as the backdrop for the altar. Madison walked down the aisle in her custom Italian silk gown, looking like royalty. Liam wept when he saw her. My parents beamed with toxic pride. I stood in my mandated blush-pink bridesmaid dress, holding a bouquet of peonies, watching the priest declare them husband and wife. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt entirely, terrifyingly hollowed out. The reception was held in the estate's grand ballroom. The centerpieces were towering crystal vases, spilling over with white roses. It was the absolute pinnacle of Madison's manufactured reality. As the multi-course dinner concluded, the DJ announced that it was time for the toasts. Weston, Liam's best man and college fraternity brother, gave a mildly inappropriate but endearing speech that had the room chuckling. Then, it was the maid of honor's turn. Natalie stood up, giggling into the microphone, talking about how she and Madison were literally soulmates. Before the DJ could transition to the first dance, I casually stood up from the head table. I tapped my knife against my crystal champagne flute. The sharp clink, clink, clink cut through the ambient chatter. "Excuse me," I said, my voice projecting clearly as I walked toward the microphone stand. "If I may, I'd love to say a few words about my beautiful sister." Madison's smile faltered. Brenda gasped audibly, dropping her fork onto her china plate with a loud clatter. They hadn't expected me to speak. I wasn't on the schedule. I took the microphone. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Liam looking at me with gentle encouragement, completely oblivious to the massacre that was about to unfold. "Hello, everyone," I started, smiling warmly at the sea of wealthy strangers. "For those who don't know me, I'm Harper, Madison's older sister. Madison and I have always had a very unique dynamic. She is the sun, and our family has always gladly revolved around her." I paused, letting the polite laughter ripple through the room. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a small, sleek remote control. I had tipped the AV technician $300 earlier that afternoon to connect a hidden receiver to the main projector, which was currently displaying a monogram of Madison and Liam's initials on the ballroom wall. Madison has told many of you, specifically Liam's wonderful family, a very compelling story about me over the past few months, I continued, my tone shifting from sweet to chillingly conversational. She told you that I lost my job. She told you that I am a severe gambling addict. She told you that she, out of the goodness of her heart, drained her own life savings to bail me out of debt. A heavy, suffocating silence descended over the ballroom. Eleanor sat up rigidly. Liam furrowed his brow, looking back and forth between me and Madison. "Harper, stop," Madison hissed from the head table, her face draining of color. "But I believe that a marriage should start with total honesty," I said, pressing the button on the remote. The massive projector screen blinked, the elegant monogram vanished, replaced by a glaring, high-definition image of a bank statement. My name was clearly printed at the top. The available balance read, $34.50. Highlighted in bright yellow was the wire transfer for $48,000, authorized by Brenda, destined for the Madison and Liam wedding fund. Gasps erupted from the front tables. "That right there," I pointed at the screen, "is my life savings, $48,000 that I worked 5 years as a UX designer to save for a condo down payment. Money that was stolen from me by my mother and happily spent by my sister to pay for the orchid wall you all took selfies in front of today." "Turn that off!" Robert yelled, jumping to his feet. Brenda was openly sobbing into her napkin. "It's a lie! She's having an episode! Someone get the microphone away from her!" Madison shrieked, her angelic facade shattering into a million pieces. She grabbed Liam's arm, but he pulled away, staring at the screen in pure horror. "An episode?" I asked smoothly. I pressed the remote again. The speakers, previously playing soft jazz, suddenly blasted the crisp, clean audio recording from the Miami nightclub. Madison's voice echoed through the ballroom, slurred but unmistakable. "Please, Liam is an idiot when it comes to me. He believes whatever I say, and Mom would rather die than let me look bad in front of Eleanor. You're the only one who cares about that stupid money, and you can't do anything about it. I secured the bag, Harper. I am going to be Mrs. Liam Higgins. Just accept that I won." The audio cut off. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the kind of silence that rings in your ears. Liam stood up slowly. He looked at Madison, who was trembling, mascara running down her cheeks as she tried to formulate a sentence. He looked at my parents, who were shrinking in their chairs. Then, Liam looked at his mother, Eleanor. Eleanor's face was carved from granite. She slowly stood up, picked up her designer clutch, and looked down at Madison with a level of disgust that could have withered a forest. "We are leaving," Eleanor announced to her family. "Liam, please! It was just a joke! I was drunk!" Madison screamed, reaching for him. Liam stepped back, his eyes dead and hollow. "You stole from your own sister," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You lied to me for months. You think I'm an idiot." He didn't yell. He didn't cause a scene. Liam simply turned around, walked down the steps of the dais, and walked out of the ballroom, his parents following closely behind. Half of the guest list, the Higgins side, immediately stood up and began filing out of the room, whispering frantically. Madison collapsed onto the floor, shrieking hysterically, tearing at her custom Italian veil. My father was yelling at the catering staff. My mother was hyperventilating. I stood at the microphone for a moment longer, surveying the absolute wreckage of my sister's fairy tale. I didn't get my $48,000 back that day, but watching the golden child lose her billionaire groom, her reputation, and her future in a matter of 5 minutes, that was priceless. I set the microphone down, picked up a fresh glass of champagne from a passing, terrified waiter, and walked out into the cool evening air, finally feeling free. Wow, what a roller coaster. If you were hooked by Harper's ultimate revenge and want more crazy real-life drama stories, you know exactly what to do. Hit that like button to show your support. Share this video with your friends who love a good plot twist. And make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on the tea. Ring the notification bell. Drop a comment below on what you would do. And see you all next time.